All right. Great to have everybody here today. Are you serious? My good friend is with me, Charles from Noble Gold. And I tell you what, couldn't have been a better and more important time to get him on the broadcast today, because we are literally, folks, seriously, with the North Korean crisis and all the things that are going on, we could not have needed an expert more than now. So, Charles, welcome to the broadcast.
Thank you. Glad to be back.
Charles, okay, so, there's an article that just came out yesterday that I'd like to just glance at for a moment. And it's in the Economic Times of India, of all places. The India Times, Economic Times. And here's what the title is. It says, gold prices are likely to jump to a 4-year high of $1,400 an ounce by year-end 2017. It says a couple paragraphs here. Gold prices are set to jump to this 4-year high of $1,400 an ounce by the end of the year over mounting tensions between North Korea and the United States and a surging demand in the world's biggest consumers, according to the head of the precious metals at the Russian Investment Bank. North Korea is a big deal, isn't it? I mean,
it is.
What is the impact, North Korea crisis, and the countries involved here?
It's a tough question to answer, but really what we look at here is we have all the underlying problems that we already know about. We've talked about, a stock market that's too high, an amount of debt that's just ridiculous here in the United States, and we've all gotten accustomed to that. Every major move needs that one catalyst, that one thing that brings all of the problems to light, and that problem is going to be North Korea.
And when
you look at them, you must realize there's something important going on that we're not aware of or we're not talking about. They have advanced quicker into the nuclear age than any other country.
Wow.
We need to question that.
Yeah, because in other words, they couldn't have done that on their own. They've had to have gotten help.
Someplace.
I mean, now there's some different concepts on that. We know the Iranians have been working with the North Koreans for a long time because both those countries want to get this nuclear power capability. And also, they're the last two countries that are not under the central bankers. Isn't that kind of strange?
Yes. Little telling there. And that is part of the issue. This is one of those scenarios where there's issues that have multifacets to them. It's not just one specific thing. But in most cases, if you follow the money, that's usually where you see the main problem.
Now, because the central bankers the central bank has such power, can you help us, the layman, understand how nations how do they relate with the central banks? How does this work?
I'll make it pretty simple, and it can be a little bit more complicated than this, but here's the basics of it. The central bank tells the government how much money it's going to buy from them. The country itself doesn't determine how much money it has in circulation. The central bank does. Now, this central bank, the name leads you to believe it's part of the government. It's not. It's a corporation. And they tell the government, you're going to buy so many millions of your own dollars from us because we're going to print them, and you're going to put them into circulation. Now, that's important for a couple things. One, this corporation is making money on it. But two, also, they have control now because they control your currency. And if they feel like your country's getting a little too strong, they're going to give you more currency and weaken it. It's a means of controlling not just your country, but your country's place in the world. And this is what central banks are all about. And this is why we make a big deal about these few nations who don't have a central bank yet. They're lacking from the complete world control of the central bank. So we see these activities, North Korea, Iran, and a lot of things have happened to them. I'm not saying that they don't deserve some of the attention they're getting,
right,
but some of it's being brought to light for a bigger purpose, and one that's not so grand for us, but it is fantastic for those people who run the central banks.
So
So that's
quantum easing is a process of where you print lots of money and throw it into the economy to keep the economy afloat a lot of times. But of course, we know that weakens the value of the currency. And the United States, especially under the Obama presidency, he just poured. But was it Obama doing it, or was he following the lead of the central bankers?
But that's just it. The central bank told him it was going to happen.
What are they doing now that the Trump administration's in? What's taking place now?
What you see now is those central banks are more worried about worldwide control. We already have massive debt. The damage has been done. Whether it's been realized yet is not the issue. It's just a matter of time. Economics is a long-term issue. Macroeconomics are events that take place over the course of a decade, not over the course of a couple years. So our damage has already been done. You'll hear it on the news. They're talking, they're going to start to bring back currency in now. There's no real good way to do that. There's no good way to remove it from the system. So that's going to cause some more tremors in our economy. You'll see inflation rates go up. And this is a tough situation because right now they're telling us inflation is not high enough. So now you look at, stagflation on top of a period of hyperinflation yet to come. It's not a good scenario, and that's what that extra currency did to us. Instead of us dealing with the damage that had been done 8 years ago, we've prolonged it. And the response only gets bigger the more you put it off. So that's the scenario for the United States. But now when you extrapolate that around the world, now you see why control over all the banking and the economies of the world makes this one of the most powerful organizations you'll ever deal with. They decide who gets to win and who loses.
Wow.
And they do it economically.
All right. So now, folks, we're visiting with Charles from Noble Gold. It's noblegoldinvestments.com. noblegoldinvestments.com. And so this North Korean crisis, we're identifying the fact that North Korea and Iran are neither one under the control of the central bankers. We look at the United States that's been going through 8 years of quantum easing, a ton of it, some of it even before that under the Bush administration is really when it even started, right, Charles?
Yes.
And yet I'm looking at your website right now, and you have a running U.S. debt, and it's showing $20 trillion, and the ticker just keeps going up. I mean, have we even addressed this yet? Can we address this even?
That's the tough question. Very hard to address that significant an amount. And no one has shown a plan that does it in a way that is responsible and non-damaging. And this is a big issue. At some point, that debt, the way our government handles debt, is we never pay debt off. We just extend it. So we have a scenario, and this is why China, we have such a relation issue with China, is they buy our debt.
Right.
This is why they have so many dollars. They bought all those debt bonds. And we have not had a balanced budget for many years. That debt is significant because we need to refinance it coming up soon. And if interest rates go up, that means it costs us more to pay that debt off.
Now, who does the Fed chairman answer to? I mean, does the Fed chairman answer to the President of the United States, or does the Fed chairman answer to the central bankers and the International Monetary Fund? I mean, who's calling the shots here?
That's a good question, and that depends who you ask. The Fed chairman is supposed to be independent.
Okay.
He's supposed to consider the best course for the nation. Now, ultimately, a president can fire him. Doesn't happen very often.
No, and matter of fact, Janet Yellen, who is the Fed chair right now, who replaced Ben Bernanke, it seemed like every time the Bilderberg group gets together, they make the decision who the players are gonna be. I remember when Ben Bernanke was fired, it was 5 days after Bilderberg met, and
Yes.
Janet Yellen was put in, and maybe she's willing to just do whatever she's led to do. But it does seem like America is really way in over our head with our debt. We've not had a balanced budget in Congress, and we don't even know how long because we just keep doing what's called continuation. and we kind of deal with some of our spending through sequestering. I mean, none of this is really true budgeting, is it?
If you and I did that, we'd be in jail. It would be considered fraud.
That's really what it is. I mean, you're right. I mean, the independent CPAs would come in and take a look at what a company was doing. If a company ran their business like that, you're right. We'd be in jail. And but the government has functioned, and is the reason we're not. Are we ever going to see a balanced budget again, or are we even going to see a budget again? Forget it being balanced.
Eventually.
Okay.
Eventually.
Okay.
Now, I don't know whether that budget comes after we have a currency revaluation, a major collapse in the markets. It's hard to say. Eventually, there'll be a balanced budget. It just really depends on how bad the upcoming crash is going to be. It'll be much easier. When you see the stock market and a lot of that money that went out by the central bank to those bankers and such,
yes,
didn't go into the projects that you and I think it went into. It went straight into the stock market where those banks can make a return. So when you see that disappear, and I know we've talked about it before, I believe we could see a 50, 54, or 55% correction in the stock price. Once that happens and you see $54, $55 trillion come out of that market, just disappear worldwide,
wow,
we'll get closer to a balanced budget then. Of course, it's going to take an effect on you and I,
right,
or anyone who has money in the stock market, or anybody who has money in a 401k that still invests in a mutual fund,
right,
or an IRA that's in a mutual fund. They're going to feel that pain again, just like it was 2008 all over again.
right.
So we'll pay that price. But eventually, we'll find a way to create some form of a balanced budget.
So
now, it could be a combination of events with a currency revaluation, a stock market decline, and I think that's where we'll see significant changes, and we'll have to wait and see what course is taken. That's why, ultimately, I say get yourself protected with gold and silver. That's your ultimate hedge against all of those scenarios. But yes, eventually we'll see a balanced budget, to answer the question.
Speaking of the gold and silver, I was looking at this same article that's out there by the economic report by the India Times. It's a great article because here's another paragraph in there. It says, prices of gold has climbed 12% this year, driven by worries over a potential nuclear conflict between the United States and North Korea, and subdued inflation in the U.S., which is cooling chances of a further increase in interest rates. President Donald Trump has intensified warnings to North Korea, promising a massive response to any strike against the United States or its allies. Hedge fund billionaire Ray Dalio recommends investors place 5 to 10% of their assets in gold. Come on, Charles. Is this what people should be doing?
It is. It is. The scenario yet to come, the big issue about inflation. And if you've watched the news today, they're talking about it. The Fed's talking about raising interest rates because they know eventually we will have inflation. So they're going to pre-raise inflation, which is going to be disastrous. It's going to be a very bad move on their part. But I think that's because they're aware that there's going to be an event in the market and we're going to see a correction. So ultimately, you should have protection. In the best of times, you should have some of your wealth in precious metals. It's the ultimate hedge. It always has been. In the worst of times, you need it. You have to have it.
So here's a question for you. Okay, and it's really what the title of today's broadcast. Does the North Korean crisis, does the economy go crashing because of it, or could war? Because we're dealing here. If there was a preemptive strike, let's say by the United States on North Korea, or let's say Korea did fire those missiles and one of them hit Guam, and we had to respond. I mean, it's not just the United States and North Korea. Obviously, South Korea is involved in. Japan would get involved. China, certainly. Russia, it's right at their doorstep. I mean, what does that do to the U.S. economy? Does it go down or does it boom in that type of a scenario?
Great question. It used to be that the government would declare war whenever they had economic trouble. It was a way to motivate the country, forget about what a difficult time it was here at home, and spark the market, to get commerce rolling again, to get manufacturing rolling again. Here's the issue: a war now, and we've been fighting wars. We've been in wars for the past 12 years.
Yeah.
It hasn't done what it used to be, because it doesn't. And this is going to, I don't want it to be offensive, but it's going to sound a little offensive. The problem with war nowadays, it doesn't kill enough people.
Oh, that's horrible. That's horrible, Charles.
It is.
That's horrible.
But from an economic point, that's the case. And that's why we had war in the past. Because what it would do, it would open up the job market.
Well, I know that World War II. I mean, look, we didn't get into World War II, to actually create a boom in our economy, but it did. And right after the Great Depression, we went into this World War II situation. The Nazis of Germany had to be defeated. The Emperor of Japan had to be defeated, and so this was a fight for survival, really, for the free world. But it did help our economy, no question about it. But when you say it doesn't kill enough people, what you're saying is that is such a page out of the Illuminati New World Order playbook, Charles, I can't even tell you. I mean, depopulation. But I guess if you run the numbers, the less people, the money doesn't go away when there's less people. There's more to go around. I mean, that's a horrible thought, but is that part of the thought process?
Unfortunately, I believe it is. What else do we have to win in a war against North Korea? We could go in there and strategically take out their nuclear platforms.
Right.
We've done it in the past.
Right.
So there was no other purpose for a war with North Korea.
Well, let's pray it doesn't happen. And I mean, I understand that, but because of these uncertainties, I guess the question was, could the economy boom or could it go bust well, if we're winning the war, I would say that means the economy would certainly probably get a bump but if you're losing, it sure won't. And I think
I would disagree just a little bit.
Okay.
There's nothing to gain. There is no boom from a war with North Korea.
So there's nothing to gain either way. Oh, we could only go down, is what I'm hearing you say. We're at risk.
Pretty much.
Wow.
There's no, even a victory in North Korea doesn't help our economy.
Wow. Well,
there's no gain for the United States in that victory.
And you know something? I pray to God we don't see any conflict at all. I mean, look, somehow Kim Jong-un, I don't see how he survives in this current world we live in. I don't see how he survives. This is a collision course. At some point, either assassin bullet inside his own regime takes him out, or he gets poisoned or something or another, or maybe even the United States sends in special ops to do a regime change. Who knows? But I don't see this guy surviving. I don't see another Fidel Castro hanging around 65 years in power. But one thing I do know, the economy, his economy, this new sanctions put on North Korea by the United States and China and Russia and the rest of the UN Security Council, if everybody sticks to their commitments, how can they afford to lose a third of their export business?
They can't. But here's what we know. When you look at that scenario, we just imposed sanctions on Russia. So Russia has no real interest in enforcing those sanctions against North Korea.
No, they don't.
They need a trade partner now.
Wow. So back to precious metals. What about silver? I'm reading here that gold is going to go up to maybe, right now, I don't know what gold is. I think it might be at $1,280 an ounce.
Correct.
And they're predicting it's going to go to $1,400 an ounce by year end. So again, you don't encourage people to buy precious metals just to make quick turnarounds.
No.
Get in for the long run. But certainly, there looks like an upswing in precious metal pricing.
Yeah, A very good upswing too. We mentioned, gold could be at the $1,400 mark, and I very much agree with that. It'll probably be just a little over. And silver, we're sitting right now with silver just barely over $17 an ounce. It would not surprise me if we saw silver much closer to $30 an ounce.
Wow!
By the end of the year.
By the end of the year, wow! It wasn't long ago. It was around $22, $23 an ounce, and then it kind of took that dip, but. So it could surpass that and go all the way up to maybe $30 an ounce, and that would be a significant.
It'd almost double your money.
Yeah, that's pretty significant. And as Christians that are out there watching, and anyone that's out there, the most important thing you do when you look at your first of all your job, your career, your business that maybe you own, is you always want to put God first in everything you do, and I know Charles knows that, and he believes that strongly. You put the Lord first, and then He will direct your path. There's a scripture that says, trust in the Lord with all your heart. Lean not to your own understanding, but in all your ways acknowledge the Lord, and He'll direct your path. And I think some people are they don't really know which way to go. I mean, do they leave their money in 401ks? Large percentages of their 401k in the stock market? Should they diversify it more with more precious metals? Should they put some of it just diversified into more cash? I mean, what would be your recommendation to folks?
Yeah, and that's a great question. Obviously, everyone wants to do what's right for them, and there's a couple scenarios. This is truly not a one size fits all. This is why I always say, call us. Let's talk about your situation, and we'll make the best recommendation for you. But with the market doing what it's doing at an all-time high and the economics of the United States not being at an all-time high, there's a disconnect there.
Yeah.
So we know that has to be fixed somehow. So we'll see some form of correction. So you look at your investments and say, okay, if I have nothing other than stocks in my portfolio, am I prepared for that kind of a correction? Can I afford to take that loss? And should I? That's the big question. From there, we can decide how much you should move, how close you are to retirement. These are all very key factors. One of the important things about an IRA account, a 401k, or an IRA you set up yourself, is time. The more time you have for that vehicle to grow, the better you do. So timing is a real important issue. If you say, I have all my money in the stock market and it's going to pull back, but I'm going to wait it out, you lose that time. And it's an interesting thing. The Dow's at an all-time high, but if you look at most people's retirement accounts that they just left it in the stock market after 2008, they're just barely getting back above breaking even. So they haven't seen this tremendous return that the Dow's seen.
Well, wait a minute.
It hasn't translated to personal wealth.
I mean, the guys that are out there, showing up in the factories and at the office saying, here, set up your 401k. I mean, if the market's done this unbelievable explosion since 2008, then how come their 401ks haven't matched that? I mean, are they putting them in the wrong accounts, or what's going on here?
It's the magic of numbers, and brokerage firms are really good at using numbers to make you believe something that doesn't exist. But here's the reality. Those accounts have not returned to where they were because most people have been contributing to them as they go, as they work. So there is a disconnect between that number and what their returns are. Some of it is the fee structures that the 401ks charge. Some of it is the options they offer you. So there's a lot of things working against you in that type of a program. But again, if you think it's going to collapse, you say to yourself, should I have everything there? Maybe I should diversify.
Right.
If I take a long-term approach to this, maybe I move 10, 15% of it into something other than just the stock market and get true diversification. You can offset that correction that's coming. And that's the joy of it. And that's how you maintain a truly balanced portfolio.
And precious metals would help offset that. Certainly
Absolutely.
And you feel confident, very confident that in the long haul, precious metals are here to stay, and that they will, the stronger possibilities you're going to have a better return, at least, and with less risk, with precious metals than maybe you don't know which way it would go when you're in the market. You may peak out the right time. You may turn 59.5 right at last week, and you're celebrating, or maybe you don't, and it's a different story. Folks, this is Charles of Noble Gold, and go to his website. Tremendous information there at noblegoldinvestments.com. That's noblegoldinvestments.com. You also have a phone number there, Charles. Is this the number they should call right there on the website?
Absolutely.
And folks, that's 877-646-5347. That's 877-646-5347. And an expert will be waiting for you. And you could probably even ask for Charles. Certainly you can help him. Is that right, Charles?
You can. I can't take every call, but my team here is all fantastic. Everyone you're going to get on the phone, very knowledgeable, and they're very able to help. But when you do call, too, please mention Paul.
Yeah, tell him Paul Begley sent you, all right? And then let them know that, hey, what? I'm dealing here with an inconsistent 401k or an IRA. So can they roll any of these IRAs into precious metals? I mean, is there a way to do that?
There is. If it's an IRA that you set up yourself or at the bank, that absolutely can be moved. No issues. If it's a 401k from work, there could be some complications. But the best thing to do is call us, have a conversation, and we can help you figure it out if it's possible or not.
All right. And so as we look at this situation right now, the crisis, I'm hoping, yesterday he didn't fire those missiles at Guam, thank God. But there were two earthquakes there, right there near the capital of North Korea. The U.S. Geological Survey did not record them. They did not recognize them. Yet some of the international Richter scale groups did recognize them. And even Rosed said that it was from a nuclear test. So there's
the way we used to do it, though. If you think back, when a country finally got the power of a nuclear bomb, they didn't detonate a bomb for everyone to see the bomb. They did underground tests.
Right.
And the rest of the world knew what it was. We know.
We know exactly what's going on. Good news is he's not firing missiles today at Guam.
Amen.
Bad news is he still sits there and plays with the green buttons. All right. And it's not a video game either. So, again, Charles is here with us from Noble Gold Investments. And, folks, his website, his expert people that are involved, these are the folks that can help you when you look at your long-term planning for your retirement. And like you said, everybody out there has to think about their future and what's going to go on. We don't know what exactly is going to happen in this world or how long we're going to live, but we know one thing: we need to think about the future a little bit, think about our children, our inheritances, all those things that we want to leave behind. So there's some important decisions to be made, and it's better to have some experts like you, Charles, to help them. Is that right?
It is. Stewardship's not always easy, but it's necessary. Give us a call and find out if it's right for you with precious metals.
It's amazing, folks, what they can do to help you. And as we talked about this, just real quickly, the central bankers, we talked about how that North Korea and Iran are not under their thumb, which means they can do what they want with their economies. But they're not really big traders that much, are they? So does it really matter what they do?
The central bank has made sure that all the countries that have the means to really help them develop according to trade have thrown sanctions on them.
So what about Russia now getting sanctions? I mean, how does that affect them and the central bank?
That's where you have a sticky situation. You can see a point where Russia says, well, if you're going to put sanctions on me, then I'm going to go ahead and trade with them. I need a trading partner too.
Wow. I mean, this is getting convoluted, if you ask me. I mean, everybody's got a gun in everybody's head, and everybody's talking in the back room at the same time. I mean, isn't it kind of a mute point?
It's anarchy. That's what it is. It's the beginning of the breakdown.
And again, we're back to this question. Will there be an economic crash or an economic boom because of North Korea and the crisis that we're dealing with? And Charles, your answer is?
I see it as a crash. I don't see any boom factor here, unfortunately. I wish there were. It just doesn't work that way.
Now, when you talk about correction of the market, real quick here, there's Main Street and there's Wall Street. Wall Street has had a tremendous rise because they got all that stimulus money and all that TARP bailout money, where Main Street got left behind. There's no question. I just seen where the President of the United States just criticized in a tweet this morning Amazon. Now, Amazon is reinventing the wheel, aren't they? I mean, it's forget retail. You just go to Amazon and buy it. I mean, just buy what you need and they ship it to your house. What is he saying? Are we going to see some regulation changes here?
I don't know if we're going to see regulation, but it does point out a very important fact that I think we've discussed in the past. It's convenient on Amazon. It's cheaper on Amazon, but we also don't employ a lot more people because of Amazon.
Yeah.
And you need people working to strengthen your economy.
Because if the entire economy, or for a large section of it, goes to Amazon instead of Walmart, let's say, you have less retail energy going on. You still got to have distribution, though. There's got to be people. And you still got to have a lot of truck drivers and delivery people. And somebody
you still have those with Walmart, too. See, that's the point. You're missing the whole sales force, though.
Oh, wow. Wow. Well, if we can move the manufacturing base back to America, maybe we can make up the difference. What we lose in the retailers, we can gain in the manufacturers. But if we don't get the manufacturing base, we're going to take a major hit of loss of jobs.
Correct.
Interesting, folks. Charles, Noble Gold Investments. He's got his act together. He knows exactly what's going on. He can help you out with your retirement plans, your 401k. Do you need to diversify? It just makes, to me, common sense to always diversify. Put God first in your life. Trust in the Lord. Be led by the Lord. But at the same time, let the experts, okay? I mean, if you're gonna have eye surgery, you don't go see the local mechanic. Okay. And if you want to work on your retirement portfolio, you probably should talk to the experts, especially Charles, the experts at Noble Gold Investments. Charles, again, tell them the phone number there. If they call you, it's right there on your website at noblegoldinvestments.com, isn't it?
Yeah, give us a call, 877-646-5347. But make sure you mention Paul.
Thank you so much. Charles, as always, it's a pleasure. Love being with you. I love the conversation. Every time we do these, I just get excited because I'm learning something. It's keeping me on edge a little bit.
I enjoy it as well, Paul.
Thank you so much, and God bless you. We'll talk to you again next time.
All right, thanks, Pastor.
All right, bye-bye.